Thank you very much for your stream. Right now, I'm going to bring John and Alice up to the stage. Welcome, both of you. So we're going to hit it off with the Q&A session. A reminder for everyone that's on the platform, just put your questions into the chat so that we can ask them here to John and Alice. I think the first question was about one of the slides that you showed, John. It's about the color palette that we use there, with where you put the black, the experience of being black to the experience of being poverty. And some people were kind of stumbling over the use of the colors there. And one of their viewers asked if is it a diverging sequential bivariate color palette, or can you elaborate a bit more of the color palette that you use there?
Yeah, it's a good question. I put the link to the full Tableau viz in the Google Docs so folks can peer at it. I don't think it's intended to be a sequential color or a diverging color palette, even though it has that sort of column of grays within the 9 squares. I think it's difficult to come up with a sequential palette that's going to work in the diverging way, but I don't think it's intended to be diverging. And if you sort of look at it maybe more across the rows, I think it does work as a sequential palette. I think it's a difficult palette to create. I think it probably could be adjusted a little bit, but I'm pretty certain it's not intended to be diverging.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
The next question I think is for Alice. It's about the p-values and showing significance. So first of all, there have been some comments in the chat that it's really good practice to kind of like show the statistical differences. But maybe significance is a bit of a strange threshold definition. So how about using a gradient mapped to a p-value or standard deviation to kind of like show these differences?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I totally agree that there's absolutely room for improvement in how we show and convey uncertainty in our data visualizations. This is just one particular approach that we took. But yeah, I think there are definitely valid concerns about why we chose arbitrarily 0.05 as that threshold. I think gradients are a really intriguing idea. I guess the only thing I would just want to check here is that given we have different colors representing different groups, just making sure that when mapped to that gradient, the way the different hues are perceived at various levels of intensity or lightness, whatever, that it all reads the same, right? It all reads consistently, like a gray versus a blue versus a green at like 50%. It doesn't feel like one color is being still more highlighted or like more saturated than the others. But yeah, if people have other ideas or suggestions, I mean, not saying that this approach is like the only correct best solution ever out there. So please keep the ideas coming. Love to hear it because there's always room for improvement.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question is about the guide you published. How has it been received and used? Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, Alice, you want to start? Yeah, so we've seen a lot of use and take up. It's been downloaded a ton from the Urban website. There's obviously a cousin part to it at the Tableau Racial Equity Hub, which is great. We've done a lot of talks on it, a lot of blog posts, and I just put some links in the Google Doc. One thing we were really excited to see was from the team at the Voila Information Design Studio in Montreal. They wrote a blog post about how they're actually using the I don't want to say messages. I don't even know lessons. I don't even know what we call it anymore, Alice. We always say it's not guidelines or rules. So
learnings.
The learnings, yes. Thanks, Naomi. That's a good one. The learnings from the Do No Harm Guide and their experience, because obviously the experience in Canada, especially as it relates to Indigenous communities, is very different than the United States. We've also heard and had some very interesting discussions with folks around the world. One interesting discussion I had was with someone in South Africa. So, for example, in South Africa, apparently the word colored is used in official government surveys around race, but the word colored in South Africa has a very different meaning than it does in the United States. So, so yeah, we've seen it. I mean, sort of anecdotally, we've heard a lot of comments about how it's been used, and then just watching the page views and the page metrics, which is imperfect, but it's what we have. We've seen a lot of visitors to the site and a lot of downloads of the piece. And I'd say we've done talks around the world at this point. There's just a lot of interest in this particular topic, as there is in a lot of other related areas that people have been talking about at Outlier and elsewhere.
Thank you. Anything to add, Alice, or should we move on?
No, just that, if people use it, please, John and I would love to hear about your experiences, any comments, feedback. I mean, this is very much just a starting point. There's definitely more room for us to continue to explore and to continue to develop this space. So yeah, if you all have, any examples of you're applying anything from our guide, please, we would love to hear more about it.
Yeah, that's great. And I think this also follows nicely into the next question from that we have. Do you have any advice on battling institutional inertia when it comes to applying the equity to your visualizations, reports, and other products, and in particularly when colleagues don't always understand the importance of applying such a lens?
That is such a great question. I mean, it's sort of like the biggest question, right? Is like, how do you get organizations together to move and be more equitable? I'll just say well, not very simply, but relatively simply. One reason why I think this body of work is so important is because for many of us who work in organizations, where we sometimes or maybe often act as the gatekeeper before a product goes out. So if we're, in Alice's case, when she's building a project, an online project like you saw in the talk, or more of what I sort of do at Urban, which is helping on standalone graphics in reports. Those things kind of don't end up getting approved and going out until the data visualization team and editorial team has had a chance to sort of make their pass through it. And so the data, we as data visualization folks have some power there to incorporate what we've been talking about in this work, right? To think about and to emphasize the importance of not using the word other and inclusive colors and better use of icons. So I think at an organizational level, I mean, that's a whole other talk, I think. And I don't know if we have but I think at least for those of us who are doing data viz and sometimes can act as those gatekeepers before things go out, we're doing a fact check or we're doing a style check. We can also be the ones that are doing a check on these particular issues. I have one other thing, but I'll turn it to Alice first, see if she has other thoughts.
Yeah, I think much like you said, John, like the reason that the Do No Harm guide really came out of our efforts to update Urban's data viz style guides. So really trying to bake in a lot of these ideas, these practices, and into the work that you do, that your organization does, I think is an important step for a lot of us to take, and is one way that we as data visualizers can hopefully try to affect change within our organizations. But that said, there is a section in the Do No Harm guide where we talk about at least some of what we heard other people experience in terms of trying to affect organizational change. So for more thoughts, definitely check out the full guide.
Yeah. And one other thing, Alice and I were, when Alice was still at Urban, single tier right here, we had a meeting with we were having a meeting with our blog team about how to get our researchers to write alt text for our images. Our blog, the Urban Institute blog, the images are, they tend to be static graphs. They sit alone on the site, and we were talking about having researchers write the alt text. We're having the discussion about should the researchers write the alt text or should the blog editors write the alt text, because the blog editors are eventually going to have to edit that text. And Alice in this meeting said, what I think was so powerful was to say, we should have the researchers write the alt text because it makes them aware that they need to be thinking about these issues. And I think that's to this question about how do you battle institutional inertia. Part of it is a little bit of carrots and a little bit of sticks, right? You sort of encourage people to do it, and then you make them do some things. And writing alt text is not a huge lift, but it's sort of making people do something. So I think that might be one way to sort of make change at the organizational level.
Okay, thank you very much. We still have some little time left, and I believe that you're dying to tell us more about your upcoming projects.
Yeah. So I see there's a lot of great questions in the Google Doc, and we'll jump in after the session. Although I'll have to be watching Ken's talk that follows us while we do it. But we wanted to just share that we have several projects coming up. Maybe Alice, I'll talk about 2 of them, and you can talk about the other one. So we have, one project Alice and I are actually not working on, but we're extending the Do No Harm Guide body of work. We're going to be doing a report. A colleague of ours is going to be doing a project on data privacy and data security and equity considerations, how data privacy and security applies in an equitable framework. We're also going to be doing a big project on data viz and data accessibility. And a lot of the names that you all know in this field are joining us in that project. So we're very excited to have that as a big project under the Do No Harm Guide umbrella that we'll have for you all in a few months. And then Alice is going to tell you about one other one that we have going on.
Yeah, it's been really exciting to see the level of support we've gotten for this work. So yeah, the third project is just continuing to build off of examining this racial and ethnic equity lens and focusing more on underrepresented groups in the data space. And so we're going to have a bunch of contributors, practitioners from in data research, data communication, data visualization from these underrepresented groups speak more about some of their experiences and some of the, I guess, takeaways they want to impart. So that'll be coming out as well.
Sounds very exciing.
Yes. It's going to keep us busy this year, but we're very excited. And if you want to learn more about it,
very busy this year.
Yes, that's right.
Well, thank you very much for hopping on to the Q&A. As you already said, there's still a lot more questions being asked in the chat, and they'll be posted in the notes as well. So if you have some time to answer some questions there, then I think everyone will be very delighted. But for now, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the conference. Stick around.
Thanks, Naomi. Thanks, everybody. Take care.